Hello everyone, this is James Tremont coming to you from Shanghai, China. We're almost up on the new year. This is the launch of the China Bootcamp blog, and so I want to do a quick introduction as to what the blog will be providing you before we get into today's topic, which dovetails very nicely with our second video called Caution Gap. So now, in that Caution Gap video, you'll remember I talked specifically about the years 2018 to 2028. We have an 8-year run-up of preparation and correction and development from now, 2010 to 2018. At the year 2018, those who are prepared to lead will lead and can lead in China one of the most massive economic and wealth opportunities for growth possibly on our planet ever. So 2018 to 2028 is the period I'm looking at. Just very nicely, there was recently an NBC Wall Street Journal poll asking Americans which country will lead the world in 20 years. So 20 years from now, we're looking at 2030, 2029, exactly the same time period I'm talking about, this period ending of massive growth. This NBC Wall Street Journal poll was featured on Meet the Press on December 20th, and Andrea Mitchell fielded the question because it was shown that 20 years ago, 3% of Americans thought China would be leading the world, and 54% of Americans thought the United States would be leading the world at this point. That is set against the change, which today 39% of Americans think that China will be leading the world in 20 years, and 37% of Americans think that the United States will be leading the world in 20 years. So from 3% to 39% believe China will be, and from 54% down to 37% think that America will be leading. I think that 54% from 20 years ago is rather telling about the honesty of Americans, that most people are very optimistic about America, but they saw some issues that needed to be corrected or could get out of control, and if not, would damage our not leading role in the world, and we're experiencing that right now. And fundamentally, that is an issue of correcting and developing new systems rather than just putting band-aids or extrapolating the current systems, which we've done over the last, since this financial crisis has happened. We haven't developed new systems. We've simply extrapolated and exacerbated the problems even more so down the road. So it's basically even now, 39% China, 37% America, statistical tie. I think that this is also the very situation that we're in. America, I believe that hopefully we'll have the same outcome, kind of a 50-50 20 years from now, because I believe that there's symbiotic relationships between America and China, that we will both correct whatever issues we have, and we will start growing, and we're already invested in each other, and we will continue to grow. And that's China Bootcamp's mission, is to leverage this symbiotic relationship that is developing. So we have 8 years to correct whatever problems we have. 8 years for China to correct whatever issues they have, and 8 years for America to correct whatever theirs are, and then off to the races. If one country does not correct their issues, then it'll be skewed. It'll be more obvious which country will be leading. I believe that China will be is able to correct whatever issues they have, and I think that there's huge opportunity here now. So if you're not part of correcting the issues back in America, you're better off here learning how the system works here so that you can leverage it and help America grow that way. So as Andrea Mitchell fielded this poll and had to give her response, and I'm not knocking Andrea Mitchell, she's obviously a very well-respected journalist. I don't know if she does her own research which I think we need to ask our journalists more often if they're really doing the research behind, especially in the financial arena, if they're doing their own research or not. But she gave a response that I have to react to in my blog. Her response to this is that we don't need to worry about China, that China is a developing nation, they have problems doing the simple things, and we need to focus on our own issues and problems, which, hey, we need to focus on our own issues. But the fact that she said that China does not need to be worried about is a problem, because I believe there's three presumptions in her reaction that we don't need to worry about it. Number one, that it's the same as before with developing nations. That we've seen developing nations have big growth and we think that they're going to compete with us and they fall off the table and aren't able to keep up. Number two, that it takes them a long time to correct their issues and they can't do quality. Number three, that we're competing directly against them and we can beat them. So that's the presumption, and that's the old thinking that played out with other nations. And there's three things that are different this time. Number one, and again, we're talking about 20-year periods. Tremendous amount of things can happen in 20 years. Number one, technology and education are completely different than they were 20 years ago, especially for China. China also has a sheer number of people. Even if 10 to 20% of the people of China take hold of the education and technology that is available to them, can provide massive results because of the sheer number of people. Number two, the products that had defects recently, some of them were American products that were managed by American managers and Fortune 500 companies that are part of the issue. You can't blame that all on China. You know, the toys is a case in fact. True, milk, then toys, and now drywall. So China continues to struggle with some quality issues. That is one of their challenges. Yet the fact is, it's not all China's system, it's American managers involved. Number three, America outsources a tremendous amount of our goods to China and the world. And so it's not a completely us versus them sort of scenario where the buyer can just buy a product from America versus China. If we stopped buying from China, it would take a while for us to gear up and hire and train and do all the things we need to do to provide the products that China now provides us. There's a huge gap right there. So what does this mean? We have some presumptions. We have some changes that are current now that weren't current 10 or 20 years ago. And China is different. So what does that mean? It means that this time it's different. That we can't just sit back and assume that China's not going to be able to correct these problems quickly. They can't do quality, because they can do quality. What you find in China is that things happen very quickly and can happen exactly like you like them if you know how to ask and if you know what you want. If you have to rely on other people to figure it out for you or to read your mind, as unfortunately a lot of American people do, then you're going to come out with bad quality. So you have to take responsibility, and that's what this new era is.